Looking for some new Core Set 2021 cards? Well, you can get them from our sponsor, Card Kingdom. Card Kingdom has Core Set 2021 up for pre-sale now, and you can check it out over at cardkingdom.com. Hello everyone, and welcome to a super special video. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we are right in the middle of release time for Core Set 2021, which means it is time to talk about what the set can do in different constructed formats. And today is Modern Day, top 10 modern cards from Core Set 2021. And joining us, as you heard from that woo, is the ever awesome Crim. How's it going today, Crim?
Hey Seth, how you doing?
I am doing well, and I am hyped to talk about Core Set 2021 in Modern. This set seems like it has some really good cards for the format, so we got a solid list, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's just a decent amount here.
Yeah, there definitely is. It's a strong list. Gone are the days when you do a top 10 Modern list and you're scraping around and trying to. There's a
Can
really
we put
solid
basic lands on the list?
Island. I'm pretty sure Island will see play in Modern. As with past episodes, a couple of quick reminders. Our list that we're doing for the video is a combination of lists that Crim and I individually made. If you want to see our individual lists, they are in the article that is linked in the description to the video. Also, I don't think this applies to Modern. I don't think we have any reprints, but basically our rule for reprints was if the card is new to the format, it can be included, but I think all the reprinted cards were already in Modern, so I think our list is 100% new cards.
Azusa, like all is already here.
Yes. So, yeah, let's jump right into it and start talking about our top 10 Core Set 2021 cards for Modern. And coming in at number 10 on our list, we have Silversmote Ghoul, which the card...
Silversmote. Ghoul.
Oh, Smote. That's
Ghoul. Yeah, all right, we're going to probably mess this up.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be one of my videos without a couple of mispronunciations. Plus, this is a zombie vampire, which we were talking about.
Right.
Talking about before we started recording, whether that's even possible, until Crim reminded me that neither vampires or zombies independently are actually possible either. So that was a fun conversation. But this card, it doesn't look like much. The big deal is it comes back into play from your graveyard for free if you gained at least 3 life. And if there's one thing we've learned in recent years with Arclight Phoenixes and Bloodgas and basically a ton of different cards, if it can come back into play from the graveyard for free, it's probably going to do something busted in Modern. Crim, do you have any idea what deck might want to play this in Modern?
Well, everybody jokes about it every time there's a new set, but I think Dredge might have gotten a new toy. This card the only way you can gain life in Dredge though currently is pretty much just Creeping Chill, and if I don't know if they still play, but maybe Gnaw to the Bone. But that would be something for them to gain life. Is the Not to the Bone the one where you destroy an artifact and gain some life?
Not to the Bone is just gain a bunch of life for creatures in the graveyard.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That. So those are the only ways that Dredge could gain life. But if they can, this comes back for free. And like you had mentioned, anytime anything comes back for free, it's usually really good, right? And on top of that, you can pay to sacrifice Silversmote Ghoul and then draw a card, which then you can then trigger a Dredge to happen again. So I think there's definitely a lot there. And it's not like this is a prized amalgam where it's in blue and black. You can actually cast this as just a straight up creature. Here you go, a 3/1. So it could be decent.
Yeah, I think looking at the Dredge creatures, and my only concern with it in Dredge is I'm not sure what you cut from Dredge to make room for it. I'm not a Dredge expert, really. So you'd have to figure out what to cut from Dredge. But looking at the creatures in Dredge, this is actually probably one of the better creatures if you get stuck, locked under Graveyard Hate and have to hardcast. At least a 3/1 that can actually kind of deal damage to your opponent compared to, Golgari Thugs and Stinkweed Imps that are, these horribly underpowered
1/2s.
Yeah, Narcomoebas that you don't even really have blue mana for. So this is a decent backup plan. And the repeatable sacking to draw a card, to dredge more cards, to get more Silversmote Ghouls in your graveyard, to get them back when you hit a Creeping Chill, that's a nice little extra loop. Dredge does care about card draw, not because it likes drawing cards, but because that triggers Dredge. So I actually kind of like the possibility of this showing up in Dredge.
Correct. Also, the flavor text, being trapped between 2 forms of unlife is a fate worse than mere death. That makes sense. Zombie vampire.
Let's move on. Number 9 on our list. We're staying in the world of black cards with a pretty simple one. Eliminate It's efficient removal. It can get creatures. It can also get planeswalkers, and cards like Teferi, 3-mana Teferi, Liliana the last hope.
Ren and 6.
Yes, there
Ren
are.
and 6 is a card that needs to get killed almost immediately if you're playing a fair deck. So I'm just excited. And this hits creatures, right? So that's pretty big. This is great across the board. I think I might be a little higher on this than you are when it comes to Modern. But I just think of everything in Modern that this hits and all the 3-mana planeswalkers. If Oko were still in the format, he would get hit by this. Of course, that wouldn't necessarily make it any Oko balance. But, the thing here is this just hits so many things in Modern, and that's why I'm a huge fan of this card.
It does kill basically all the important creatures to the format, and most of the best planeswalkers in the format are also under 3 mana. You can see a Jason Mind Sculptor now and then, sometimes like a 5-mana Teferi, but really the big ones are the Ren and 6s, the Lilianas, even Ashiok sees a lot of play these days. Yep. So there are plenty of targets for this. Little worried about the expense, like 2 mana, as strange as it sounds, is like kind of a lot for a removal spell that only hits creatures and planeswalkers and isn't like an Assassin's Trophy or something, but it is instant speed and it does hit a lot of targets and it's probably going to be pretty good.
It's easier to cast than like an Abrupt Decay, and it kind of, for what you're going to be using it for, most likely it'll just be an Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, no, that is true. I guess you don't lose that much by not being able to hit like artifacts and enchantments, really.
Right, like, 'cause I mean, okay, I don't hit like Cranial Plating, like stuff like that, but like, do people still play Affinity? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
what if you gotta blow up an Astrolabe, Crim? An Astrolabe.
Look, I don't think I'm doing that. So, I think this is definitely going to be a good one for Modern.
Well, let's move on. Number 8 on our list. We have a card that I really like, and I know Speaker of the Heavens doesn't fit in a top tier deck, but I really like decks like Martyr Proc, Soul Sisters, and even though they are tier 3 decks that occasionally like pop up in 5-0 League, this is the perfect card for those decks. Decks like Martyr Proc, Soul Sisters easily get up above 27 life, and then this kind of works like, I would say, a backup Saracen almost, as a 1-drop that, once you gain a little bit of life, becomes incredibly powerful. While it doesn't get big itself, it lets you make a 4/4 Angel each and every turn, which is a great way to close out the game, and the Angel is going to trigger your Soul Wardens, trigger your Soul Ascendants. If you're Martyr Proc, you can use Proclamation of Rebirth to reanimate this if it dies in the early game. So even though the decks it goes into are fringe, I think those decks are really going to like having a Speaker of Heavens available. But Crim, what do you think about Speaker of Heavens?
I mean, I agree with you there. This can definitely go right into Soul Sisters. This card wasn't initially on my list, just because, I don't know. I mean, is this good enough? I mean, like, I wish you could tap it at instant speed. That would have probably made it pretty cool. But the fact that you can only do this anytime you can cast a sorcery, like that makes it just okay, I guess. And but Soul Sisters as a deck, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I guess. Why not?
Technically, so I'm not really worried about it being good enough for Soul Sisters. I think that even at sorcery speed, it'll be fine in the deck. I'm more worried that just like Soul Sisters isn't really that good. So if Soul Sisters isn't good, then we're never going to see Speaker of the Heavens in Modern, because outside of like those white life gain Soul Sister style decks, there's not really another deck I can think of in the format that can take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't know of another deck in the format that can take advantage of this outside of Soul Sisters. So, hey, Soul Sister players, rejoice, because you got a Speaker of the Heavens.
Moving on to number 7 on our list. We're sticking in the realm of 1-drops, but moving over to black for Archfiend's Vessel, a card that can potentially be a 1-mana 5/5 flyer if you could get it into play from your graveyard. Crim, what are we doing with this one in the Modern format?
I mean, we have Unearth, right? We have Unearth, we have tons of things to like do with this card, and I'm a huge fan of that. So just pretty much it's just like the fact that we can get a 1-mana 5/5 pretty easily in Modern. And you know what? As weird as it sounds, it's not broken here, right? Like, even if you just 1 mana bring it back, it's just a 5/5, but
still dies to Fatal Push.
Yeah, still dies to Fatal Push, but still good, right? Still respectable. Like a lot of like aggro decks will have a tough time dealing with it and getting past it.
Yeah, no, it is definitely still a very good card. A 1-mana 5/5 is definitely powerful, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of ways to get it into play. Lurrus still floats around a little bit in the format. So if you're playing a Lurrus deck, that's an easy way to recast it. There is Unearth. There's a bunch of ways to cheaply get it in and out of the graveyard. So I feel like if you're playing a deck that can do that, I mean, a 1-mana 5/5 is good enough, even in a format like Modern, that you're going to want Archfiend's Vessel in your deck.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to number 6 on our list. We have our red polymorph, Transmogrify. So, Crim, polymorph has been around for a while, but why are we excited about this red version in the Modern format?
Well, the thing here is, like, before you had to play blue, right? You had to play blue, do all of this. But now red just has another redundant like polymorph effect, right? Like in that they have this, they have Luca, you know what I mean? They have tons of that stuff, and you really get to play just you can cut out the blue. You just play Ghoul.
Yeah, I think that is the big upside, is being able to have Transmogrify. You don't have to go into blue to play a polymorph style deck. Obviously, we know that getting something like Emrakul into play on turn 3, turn 4, that's good enough to win a lot of games in the Modern format. Transmogrify
yes.
does get that job done. So I'm definitely excited for the possibility of like using this with Indomitable Creativity or Luca to be able to have like 8 polymorph effects, potentially in a mono red deck, a Ghoul deck, and then really being able to build around that effect while also having good mana, maybe even also being able to like slam Blood Moons and so forth, which are good ways to jank out some decks in Modern. So I think the color shifting here is definitely the big reason to be excited about Transmogrify.
Yeah, that's the best thing that I would say for going for the card. It's just that now that it's in red, it's just a lot better.
Yeah, it definitely is. And we've seen kind of this effect shift almost exclusively to red recently with Luca's and all those effects. It seems like this is something red gets way more than blue, and now we have enough of those to really build around the effect, because if you're building around a combo deck like Transmogrify, where the focus of your deck is, I'm not going to play any creatures, I'm going to make a token, I'm going to turn it into Emrakul or whatever, having only 4 copies of an effect is definitely risky, even in 2020 where you can mulligan aggressively and stuff, because if you don't hit your main combo piece, your deck's not going to do anything. So being able to have 6 of that effect with the help of Luca or with the help of Indomitable Creativity on top of Transmogrify, I think that's a really big deal, just upping the consistency.
Agreed.
Well, let's move forward to number 5 on our list. We have See the Truth, which, oh man. So this is one that if you cast it, but you didn't cast it from your hand, you get to draw 3 cards for just 2 mana at sorcery speed, which is pretty insane. That is a lot of card advantage. Even front half, it's like a bad Anticipate because it's sorcery speed, but Anticipate's not that bad of a card. What are we doing? How are we casting this from places other than our hand in Modern, Crim?
I mean, Snapcaster Mage, right? Like, I think we all know that card by now. And I think that's the main thing, right? Like, Snapcaster Mage. What deck will play this, though, is what we need to now figure out, right? Because, like, I mean, a control deck, I don't think they want a sorcery speed spell. And they don't want to do this on their turn, right? Like, spend 2 mana to play Snapcaster, then 2 mana again to draw 3. So, we're looking probably for more of either a tap out deck, like you've seen some Jeskai Sahili decks, like those decks can play it, right? And I think just any kind of blue deck that is willing to tap out on its turn. Even like Phoenix, if you wanted to.
Yeah, Phoenix decks could play it. Obviously, I think Snapcaster is a big selling point. If you don't have a realistic shot of casting this from places other than your hand, there's better options available. But in those decks where you can cast it from your graveyard or wherever, it offers a lot of potential. I almost wonder if like something like Storm could even consider it, since you have like Past in Flames and you're getting stuff back from the graveyard, and it's going to be 1 mana if once you have your Brawl or Electromancer anyway on the battlefield. So I think really Snapcaster is what I mainly thinking of. Yes, tapping out main phase is a little bit obnoxious, but still, drawing 3 for 2 is enough of a payoff that I think is going to be worth it in some decks.
Oh yeah, definitely, like you had mentioned, Storm, because they do have the mana reducer, so that's really good there too.
Well, let's move on to another spell-based card. Number 4 on our list. We have Stormwing Entity, which gonna be pretty cheap in the format. Ooh. Kind of a new Delver-esque style spell, where the big deal is you gotta cast an instant or sorcery. If you do, it's a 2 mana 3/3 flying prowess that even scries when it comes into play. How are we doing this one in Modern, Crim?
How am I going to be trying this? or are we like, because like I'm going with either Esper Mentor or Grixis Delver. But you could just play a blue-red, like, you know, counter, like a tempo deck, right? Or anything along the lines of, like, you know, Monastery Mentor and Wada Wada, right? So I think this card is really good in Modern. I mean, just being able to go like Thoughtseize or like Opt or Bolt or anything along those lines, and then just getting a big 3/3 prowess bird, especially in this format where we have things like Gut Shot, Phyrexian spells, you know, just there's so many ways to like get this down for 2 mana. And I think this is just at home in Modern. This card is insanely powerful.
Yeah, you have suspend cards. You can like suspend a Rift Bolt, and then that counts as a spell, even though you didn't spend mana on it to get this down on turn 2. Gut Shots, as you mentioned, Mutagenic Growth. There's a long list of spells that are either free-ish or 1 mana that can get this into play. And then once you have it into play, Delver of Secrets has proven itself to be a very strong threat in tempo style decks. And this is basically an upgrade. You get prowess, you get an extra point of toughness. Technically being 5 mana means it dodges Fatal Push even with Revolt,
Correct.
which adds a little bit more resiliency to the card. So I think this card, maybe is it Phoenix style decks could play it, some sort of counter burn, or is it prowess style decks, Monastery Mentor, as you mentioned. There's a lot of possibilities for this card. But when you cast it for 2 mana, it's just above the curve for a format like Modern.
Yeah, and like, yeah, let's say they remove it. At the very least, you still got the scry out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds weird, but like that, it might matter, unless, of course, you know, like, yeah, like they wait until you do the scry and then they path it, but whatever.
I mean, people have argued that Scry 2 is roughly as powerful as drawing a card.
I think so, right? Because like Scry 1 is half a card, so
Yeah.
you kind of drew a card.
So if you look at it from that perspective, it's even more insane.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. Number 3 on our list. We got a reprint, and this is a reprint that I have wanted in Modern for years now. Containment Priest, just make it so if non-tokens would come into play but weren't cast, they get exiled instead. So, Crim, what do you think about Containment Priest in Modern?
This card should have been in Modern, I felt like a long time ago. It was needed quite a while ago.
I agree.
It shuts down Grishol brand, like the out, like, you know what I mean? Like Neo brand, any of those decks, Dredge. Like there's just so many creature decks that shut down by this. Even like the polymorph decks and stuff like that. Like this is just absolutely huge.
Yeah, the list of cards that this actually hits on in Modern is very impressive. You have collected company decks that this hits on. You have Dredge being a top tier deck that's been on the rise recently. This kind of locks that down. You have Reanimator or like Through the Breach style decks trying to cheat something into play from hand or from the graveyard. You have Bring to Light decks looking to get Niv Mizzet. Actually discount that, because I think you actually cast the card with Bring to Light. So scratch that one off the list. But
Ether Vial.
Ether Vial, you have Lure stacks casting stuff from the graveyard. There's a very long list of things that this hit on. And I know we talked about this in Pioneer, and we kind of landed on this will be good eventually, but I don't know if I would play it right now. In Modern, I think it's different. I think this is a card that I would just immediately slot into my sideboard. I think it hits on enough things in the format that it's already deserving of a slot.
Correct. I agree with that. Like this is already in my sideboard.
And this is exactly the kind of reprints I want, because if there's one issue I have with Modern, it's just how unfair it gets. And Containment Priest is kind of the definition of a fair card that punishes people for doing those unfair cheat Grizzlebrand into play on turn 2, or I'm going to dredge half my deck on turn 2 and get all this stuff for free. Containment Priest hates on the stuff that I want to see hated on. I don't know if it'll like slow down Modern in and of itself, but it is a good option for slowing down specific decks at least.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just an effect that we needed for quite some time.
Well, let's move on. Number 2 on our list, we have a card that might speed up Modern a little bit in Chandra's Incinerator. Good Lord, every time I look at this card, it becomes
better.
It becomes more broken every time I look at it. So essentially a casual 1 mana 6/6 trample that has additional upsides in a deck that can deal a lot of non-combat damage. Crim, do we have any decks in Modern that, I don't know, can cheaply deal a lot of non-combat damage?
Gee, if only there were one in red that could do that. Like, if you go Rift Bolt, right? Like, that's already insane. And then turn 2, you get to, like, throw another bolt, and then you get this, right? Like, holy cow. And on top of that, this, once again, does not get pushed, which is a really popular removal spell. It does get path, but whatever. And, like, on top of that, like, it has trample, so you can't chump block this. This could efficiently, like, block a lot of creatures. Like Tarmogoyf is now just gonna get laughed at if like it sees this. Like there's just so many things it does. And on top of that, this can remove creatures and planeswalkers with every burn spell that you play. So it kind of does everything that you want it to. The only time this is like terrible is if you're like hellbent and then you're just like top decking.
Yeah, and I mean, even like that's also like somewhat true of Bedlam Reveler, and Bedlam Reveler sees a lot of play. Like if you get your graveyard shut down, you're drawing an 8-drop that doesn't do anything. So I don't think that that's even anywhere near a deal breaker, especially when you consider all the power we've been talking about. Riftbolt into any burn spell, have this come down for 1 mana on turn 2, 6/6 trample, can close out the game on its own, dodging removal, and as you mentioned, it blocks for days. If you gotta go on the defense, it shuts down like all the Eldrazi out of Eldrazi drop, Thought-Not-Seers, Reality Smashers, humans,
Smasher
like
gets blocked.
Yes, it just locks them all down for 1 mana most likely. So I think this card is just absurd. I expect Burn to play it. I expect like Prowessy, mono red Blitz decks possibly to play it. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about this, but basically if you can get its mana cost down in the 1 to 2 mana range, it's just a really powerful card.
It's pretty much, yeah, like it's not even legendary, so you can have multiples, and I love that.
Oh my god, you're gonna get like the hollow one stars where it's like suspend 2 Rift Bolts, untap turn 2, incinerator, go.
That would be so good.
Ooh. All right, let's move on. Number 1 on our list. Yes, there is a card ahead of Chandra's Incinerator, and that is another red card, Conspicuous Snoop, our new goblin.
Snoop.
Conspicuous Snoop. That's what I meant to say. Thank you, Grim. Yes, our new goblin. And this card, I think, is pretty spectacular. Obviously, it's a good value goblin. Lets you play goblins off the top of your deck, which is already pretty good for a tribe like goblins. It gets empty-handed quickly. On the other hand, It also has some combo potential built in, which I think is the main reason people are really hyped about it. But Grim, what do you think about Snoop in the modern format?
I think that's the great thing about it. It plays the fair game very well, but it also has combo potential, right? So, but the fact that it has that flexibility gives Goblin a lot more like depth when it comes to play. So I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, so Goblins has gotten a bit of a boost of power since Modern Horizons. It still kind of floats around in like the 2nd tier range, but Snoop allows you to rebuild after a Wrath, generate card advantage, and the combo, if you're not familiar with it, can actually win the game really quickly, because Snoop gains the abilities of whatever Goblin is on top of your library. The idea is you play Conspicuous Snoop on turn 2.
Conspicuous Snoop, yes, on turn 2.
Turn 3, you Bogart Harbinger. You put Kiki-Jiki on top of your deck, which gives you a Snoop that can tap to copy itself. So you tap it, you get a copy of it, that copy's untapped. You tap it, make a copy of it, that copy's untapped. You make an infinite number of that, a few thousand, however many you feel like clicking through.
Yes.
And then, with the last one, you copy your Bogart Harbinger again. This time you put Mog Fanatic on the top of your deck, which is a goblin that allows you to sacrifice it to deal 1 damage to something. So then, all of a sudden, all your Snoops have that ability. So you just sack all your infinite number of Snoops and ping your opponent to death. That's a turn 3 kill that isn't even, that's a 2-card turn 3 combo kill. Like, that's not even that far-fetched. Yes, it can get disrupted by removal or whatever, but that is still really fast. So now Goblins, along with Ringleaders and the ability to play the long game and grind out card advantage, which Snoop also helps with, can also just kind of luck into this turn 3 combo kill, which I think is a really big deal. Some of the best decks in Modern are decks that have a legitimate, like, oops, I win nut draw, but also can play the long game. I think Goblins enters that conversation now.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing about it, right? Now it already has an aggressive game plan, right? So it already had a clock, and but now it can play the long game, and it has the combo finish. So it just got a lot better. And now this just means that I want to do the aggressive Thought Scour. Mill them too.
Oh, I guess that technically would get away from it. Like if your opponent taps the first copy to go off with Kiki-Jiki and you Thought Scour them, that does fizzle the combo, which is absolutely hilarious.
Unless my luck, I mill them right to another Kiki-Jiki. I'm like, well, okay.
Oh, that is hilarious. Anyway, I think that's our top 10 list for Modern. So, Grim, Thanks for hanging out and doing it. It's always a blast.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
And thanks everyone for watching. So you've seen our top 10 cards for Modern, and if you want our individual lists, make sure to check them out in the article on the site, linked out in the description below. But now, let us know in the comments, what M21 cards are you hyped for in Modern? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? What else can see play? What decks can some of these cards go in? If you got lists you're working on, let us know that as well. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here. We made it through almost all 3 videos without any massive mispronunciations, but I ruined it right at the end. The very last card.